Mhm. Okay, so I think we will get started. Well, welcome everybody from Twin Oaks. We are here in June, almost the end of school, but we are just fitting it in a virtual family STEM night for Twin Oaks Elementary. My name is Justin, and I work with Connected Lane County, along with lots of other organizations in Eugene and Lane County to bring you fun STEM activities. So without too much talking from me, I want to get right to it because we only have about 30 minutes per activity. And I just want to mention that since this is a webinar, we cannot talk directly to the viewers. So if you have a question or if you want to make a comment, you can put it in the chat and I will relay that to the person who's leading the activity. And our first activity is for kindergarten and first grade students, and it's with the woman here with me, Jenny from Mount Pisgah Arboretum. So with all that, I will turn it over to you, Jenny.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. My name's Jenny, and I work at Mount Pisgah Arboretum. Hopefully some of you have been there. If you haven't, you should check it out. It's a great place to come hike with your family or go on a picnic or hang out by the river during the summer is especially nice. So we are going to do a little build a nest activity together. So if you have your kit, here are the things that you should be seeing. You should be seeing a little paper in there that has some birds on the back. And on the front, there is like a little ruler. You can use that, or you might want to just grab a regular ruler if you have that handy. And then the other stuff that you should see is some like shredded paper that I just put all over my table. Here we go. And some yarn bits and some kind of little sticks. You might have the flat ones instead of these skinny ones, and maybe some toothpicks, something like that. And then I think you also have pipe cleaners. I was out of pipe cleaners, but you should have them. So those are the main things that you'll need for the activity. You might also want to grab, if you want a challenge, you can get chopsticks if you happen to have them around your house, or 2 spoons. And we'll talk about what you'll do with those in a little minute, but you can go grab those if you want to make the activity a little bit harder for yourself. You can try it too and then not use them if you don't want to. So I'm going to share my screen here. Here we go. Great. So build a nest. So here's Mount Pisgah. Like I said, it's a really pretty place. So I just have a couple of pretty pictures of Mount Pisgah. You should come see it sometime. And then we'll jump right in. So the first thing that we want to think about is, what do animals need to survive, right? So think for a second, like, what are some of the main things that any animal is going to need in order to be able to do well and be healthy? So one thing you probably thought of was food. Here are some deer. They're chewing on some grass and some shrubs. So food is really important for animals. Also water. So this is a picture of a turtle, and turtles live in the water most of the time, but all animals need to be able to have a water source that they can drink from, right? That's really important if you're an animal. And then the third one that we're going to focus on tonight is shelter. So here's a little gopher poking its head out of its tunnel. So it has a whole tunnel system underground, and that's its shelter. So animals make all sorts of different kinds of shelter, right? We're animals, and we make whole cities full of buildings that we use for shelter. But there's lots of other kinds of shelters that animals make too. Beavers make dams like this one here. They can make really huge dams, actually, that make whole ponds along streams and rivers. So they, kind of like humans, are really good builders. They build big stuff. Some animals build slightly smaller things, like here's a fox, and you can see its den. So right next to the rock, there's this little hole, and it carves out a little den to sleep in, digs it out of like the side of a hill or something. So that's one kind of shelter for an animal. And then there's nests. So this is one kind of nest. This is a wasp nest, and that's a shelter for animals that they make. And then there's the nest that we think of when we think of nests, which are birds' nests. So you can see this little robin here, and it's sitting on a little nest that it's made. And it looks like it's used a lot of like twigs and grasses. And you can't really see it in this picture, but the inside is usually lined with mud. They like to use mud for their nests. So as we look, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of different pictures of different animals that make nests, and pay attention to the different sizes, the different shapes, and the different kinds of materials they're using for their nests. Because we're going to pause and you are going to use all of those random materials that were in your bag. You're going to take them and try to create your own nest out of those. So be paying attention as we're looking at the pictures, because you'll kind of have an idea like what materials do you want to use for your nest when you start building it, and how do you want to try to put it together. So that's a robin's nest, right? They're, they're like this size. They're not that big, but they're not the tiniest nest either. Up here, you can see a Steller's jay, and then up in these branches, there's this stick nest. So Steller's jays like to use mainly sticks, not very much grass, like it's mostly a bunch of sticks that they sort of weave together to create a nest. And you can see it's pretty well camouflaged, because if you're looking up at it, it just looks like more sticks in the bush, right? You're not really seeing it that well, which is what a bird wants, right? Because they don't want predators to be able to find their nest.
Hey, Jenny, is a Steller's jay the same as a blue jay?
No, a Steller's jay is, we don't actually have blue jays here. That's more on the East Coast. We
Okay.
have the bird most people call a blue jay here is actually a Steller's jay, slightly different.
I'm sure I've made that mistake then. All right, I'll try and fix that. Thanks.
So the next one we've got here is an osprey nest. An osprey nest, if you've ever driven around anywhere around here, you've probably seen them along rivers, right? And sometimes people actually build structures for them to like put their nest on, because otherwise they'll take things like telephone poles and stuff to build their nest on. They really like a big straight stick, like this tree that is dead and the top is gone off of it. And they like to put their nest right up at the very top of something like that. And these nests are big because they're big birds. So you've got like this huge nest, and every year they add onto it. So they can get bigger and bigger and bigger as the years go on. And the same ospreys will come back to the same nests. So a lot of those other birds, the other two that we just saw, the robins and the Steller's jays, they don't come back to the same nest. They just make a new one every year. But ospreys, they like to come back to the same nest and keep building on. That's why they get so big. And they like to use mostly sticks also. But instead of little twigs like the Steller's jay, they're using like big sticks for their nest. So this is a really different little nest. This is a swallow, and swallows, there's some sticks in here and some little roots and twigs that you can kind of see, but mostly what they use is mud. So they like to go to rivers, and you'll see them sometimes hanging out on the ground next to the bank of a river or stream, and they're grabbing little globs of mud from the river or the creek, and they fly back to their nest, and they kind of like spit it out in a line, and they build a nest that way. So this is the little nest that they construct. They're usually pretty small, not that big, but mostly mud is what they're using. So that's a very different kind of nest, different material. Here's what a duck's nest looks like. So these are mallard ducks right here. Here's the female, she's the brown one, and the male is the one with the green head. And they nest on the ground. So their nest has to be really well hidden. You can see there's people that found this nest, and they are like having to move some of the grass away because it was so well covered by all the grasses in the area. And then you can see also that there's a whole bunch of feathers down there. So to keep their eggs nice and warm while they're waiting to hatch, the female will pull out feathers from her chest and put them like fluffy feathers on the bottom of the nest that she's made out of grasses. So not very many twigs here. It's mostly just grasses and reeds and stuff that they use, and then their own feathers. And that's how they make their nest. And that's why the female is that brown color, right? Because she needs to be well hidden as she's sitting very still on the nest. So that hopefully if like a predator like a dog or a cat happens to be walking by, they won't see her and they won't realize there's a nest there since they're right on the ground. This is a really cool nest. This is made by this little bird here, and they're little birds, not big ones. They're called bush tits, and that's a little gray bird. And they make a nest out of like cottonwood fluff. You know that white fluff that floats around in the air by rivers, or like willow fluff? It's the seeds of willows or cottonwood trees. So these birds collect that, and they time their nest making for when there's a bunch of that fluff around, and they'll take it along with moss and lichens, and they grab spider webs and they weave it together with the spider webs, and that's what's holding it together. So it's kind of looks like a little sock, and the babies would be down in the bottom hanging out, and there's a little hole up at the top, and the parents will go in and feed the baby and come pop back out. These nests don't last that long because they're pretty delicate, but the little bush tits in the winter will actually go back to the nest if the weather is bad, and they'll hang out in it. If it's like a really cold, wet, like rainy day, a bunch of adults then will go and like shove into the old nest from the spring, and they'll hang out in there to stay warm together. So that's kind of cool that they use it again.
That's pretty cool. One of our students, Logan, writes that they have a duck at their house. I think like maybe not a pet duck, but like you have chickens, right? We have a duck. So I'm sure he's seen a duck nest up close.
Yeah, you might have. That is cool. So here's a hummingbird nest. So hummingbirds, you know, they're really little, and their nests are tiny, tiny, tiny. And they kind of do the same thing. They use spider webs, and they use moss and lichen, and usually in the middle of it is a bunch of like cottonwood fluff or some kind of fluff. Sometimes I've actually seen, if you have a washer and dryer in maybe your garage or somewhere in your house, there's usually a vent where the extra air comes out, and little bits of like clothing fibers will end up like kind of coming out that vent. And I've seen hummingbirds going up to people's houses and grabbing the fluff from our clothing too, and using that for their nests also. And then they like to camouflage it with lichen and moss on the outside, so it's hard to see. So keeping your nest camouflaged, that's pretty important. You want to make sure, if you're a bird or an animal that makes a nest, you want to make sure that predators are not going to notice your nest.
Jump in for one correction. Sorry, Jenny. Logan wrote back, he has 8 ducks.
Oh, you have 8 ducks, Logan.
8 ducks. Well, then I was mistaken.
You've definitely seen a nest, because they'll start making nests for themselves. Even if you don't give them material, they'll find it somehow, and they'll start pulling out their feathers and trying to make a nest eventually. Yeah, ducks. I like that. So this is an animal that sometimes people are surprised that they make nests. Squirrels. A lot of squirrels around here build a nest, and that's where they have babies. So not just birds make nests, other animals can do it too. And you can kind of see in this picture, there's a whole bunch of sticks like stuck together on this tree, and that's a squirrel nest. It's called a dray is the other name for it, since it's a squirrel nest. But it'll have a hole kind of in the middle, and it'll be covered. A lot of birds' nests are like a cup, right? And the bird sits on the top of the cup with the babies underneath them, or the eggs. A squirrel covers the whole top, and then there's a hole that they go in. And that's nice, because if it rains, their babies aren't going to get wet, and they don't have to stay sitting on their babies to keep them dry, right? They can leave them. Because squirrels, their babies are going to hang out in the nest a little bit longer than a lot of birds. So remember, like the robins that we saw, most birds, a lot of birds, it's just 2 weeks for robin babies hatch out, and then 2 weeks later, they're big enough to be able to leave the nest. So that's why a lot of birds' nests are like this, because it doesn't matter. Like the babies aren't going to stay there that long. But baby squirrels are going to end up staying in the nest a lot longer. So you want something that's going to protect them a little bit more. Turtles make nests for their egg. Not great nests in comparison. The bird nests are like really well like crafted and created, but turtles will make nests too. They just they dig it out of the mud and they lay their eggs, and then they cover it back over with dirt, and that's the nest for a turtle and its eggs. And some rodents, some mice make nests. So this one on the one side is from a harvester mouse, and they're really cool looking little nests. Kind of the same thing as a squirrel, where it's covered all the way over the top, and then there's a little hole so that the babies hanging out inside are not going to get wet. And they use like, look, it's got fibers, like almost, I think it's bark. They like will strip bark and stuff off of trees, and they'll use grasses. And then even if it's not a harvester mouse, because they make a particularly cool nest, all the mice that are around here, they make nests for their babies. So some of you might have found a mouse nest, maybe in the corner of your house or the corner of the garage where you haven't looked for a while. Sometimes you'll find this little pile of like fluff. And mice are really good at, taking like old clothing and like bits of our fabric scraps and like chewing them up and creating this really cool little soft, fluffy place. And their babies, they shove in right in the middle of the fluff so that the babies will stay nice and warm in there. So under here, the bottom picture, you can see like this is an old mouse nest here. The babies are gone, but that was a nest that a mouse was using for its babies at some point. And rabbits make a little nest for their babies too. So here's some little baby rabbits hanging out in a little nest that their mama has made for them. And rabbits, just like ducks, they pull fur off of themselves and fluff it up along with grasses and straw and stuff like that, and sometimes mosses, so that it's a really nice fluffy nest for their babies. So at this point, you've seen a whole bunch of different kinds of nests. So what you should do, I'm going to stop my screen share for a second. There we go. So what you should do now is look at all your materials and think to yourself, okay, what kind of nest do I want to make with the materials you have, right? Do you want to use the sticks? Do you want to use the paper shredding? Do you want to use the yarn or the pipe cleaners? You look at your materials, and you and whoever is with you today, make a plan for how you're going to build your nest and start doing it. Try to like put them together and see if you can end up with a nest that will stay together. Can you pick it up at the end? That's the hard part. And if you really want a challenge, you can try, remember those chopsticks? Remember, birds, which are the animals that most make nests, do not have fingers. They have to make their nest with their bills, like this. So if you want a challenge, you can try to grab your chopsticks, or you can use 2 spoons and use them kind of like the bill of a bird, and see if you can build your nest with like the spoon or the chopstick. Or you can start out that way and then maybe go back to your hands, because it's pretty hard. I tried once with the chopsticks and my nest did not come out very well, I have to be honest, because I'm not a bird, so I wasn't so good with the chopsticks. So you should try and see how it goes for you. So I am going to build my little nest while you're building yours, but I'm going to do mine fast, so it probably won't look that great, because I also have some nests here to show you. So I'll show those to you while you're working on your building. So let me share once again. Here we go. Okay, so I've got all my materials right here. I am actually going to start out with my nest with, see if we can see them, move them over this way a little bit. There we go. I'm going to start out with my sticks. And I think also I might use my yarn too. So I'm going to put my sticks in the yarn. Let's see if I can get it to stay together this way. I'm going to just sort of weave it in. See what happens. And remember, you should be trying to make your own nest right now, too. All right, so I feel like I have a pretty good base there. So then I'm going to use some of this because I wish I had the pipe cleaners. Those pipe cleaners I think are going to come in really handy with the nest building. I don't have that. So I'm just going to see if I can put some of these paper scraps around here, and my sticks should hold them up. And then I've got the soft yarn in the middle, and I've kind of got some walls with that. Now, I'm going to leave mine at that because I'm going to show you some nests while you're building, but I bet you can make an even more fabulous nest than I just did. So while you're building your nest, let me show you a few cool ones. Let me grab it. So here is one. This is a nest that's woven. So all the little fibers here are all woven together. And this bird actually found like a rope, I think, that somebody had left out, and it pulled all the little pieces out and wove them together. And this is one of those hanging nests. So that's the inside part. And it's kind of fallen apart at this point, but it would have hung up on a tree from a branch. So this was probably an oriole or a tanager. They like to make nests that are like this, the hanging nests. Let's check out another one here. This is a little tiny nest that's made out of mosses. There's a little bit of grass in the bottom there. And I don't know. There's the side for you. So it's all moss and grass, and that's it. That's what they used. So not a nest that's going to last very long, but probably those babies only stayed in the nest for like, I don't know, a couple weeks at most, and then they were gone. So it didn't need to last that long. And I'm not actually sure what made this one. I know some of the other ones, but not this one. Here, let's see if we can get a good view of it. It's a little tricky because it's connected to stuff. This is a hummingbird nest. So you can see, right, all of the lichen, and you can see the fuzz that's kind of coming out of it, and that's the cottonwood fluff that they use. And if I can turn this the right way. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction.
I've always wanted to see a hummingbird nest. They're so tiny, they're hard to find.
Yeah, they're so tiny. And of course, I'm like not showing it to you very well because my camera is doing weird things. But which way do I need to go? Come on.
So if you move to your right, I think.
Yeah, okay, well, I give up. But you saw the side of it anyway. I'll put it down here. That way you can see it. So yeah, that's a little hummingbird nest, which is pretty cool. So how are all of your nests going? Hopefully you're almost done with your nests at this
Yeah, the
point.
main drawback, I wish we could see those student nests.
I know, I wish I could see them, what you made, but we can't. But on the back, for when you're done, I'll keep showing you a few nests. But if your nest is almost completed, on the back of the page that came with all of your stuff, you'll see a whole bunch of different animals listed. And those different animals have how big their nests are. So what you're going to do is use the ruler on the front to measure how wide is the nest that you end up making. And then you can turn your page over and look and see which animal would best fit into your little nest that you made. Are you making a nest that's big enough for like an osprey? Probably not, because I don't think I gave you enough stuff for that. Or are you making a nest that's like the perfect size for a tiny hummingbird? Or are you making a nest for a Steller's jay, maybe? So you can use your ruler and try to figure out which animal is going to fit in my nest the best.
Oh, and everyone, Principal Taylor is with us. Even though you can't see her, she's here. And she says that to all the students out there making nests, if you have your iPads with you, take a photo of your nest when you're done. Take a photo of your nest with your iPad, and your teacher can use those pictures to upload the photos for an activity. So if you have your iPads there and you want to take a picture, go ahead and take a picture of the nest you're making. Wait till you're done, of course. But that would be great so your teachers can see it at school.
So this one right here, we can focus it a little bit better for you. This is a robin's nest. Oh no. Oh, there, that's good. And there's actually a little egg left inside. So the little blue egg of the robin. And you can see kind of in here that it's grass, but underneath the grass is this layer of mud, because robins like to use a lot of mud in their nests. And then all along the sides, you can see the lichen, because they like to hide the nest with lichen and mosses along the edge so that the nest is well camouflaged when it's up in the tree. So all the lichen and the moss goes on the bottom for things that might be looking up to try to find a nest, right? Which would be things like your cat or a snake. There's a lot of snakes that actually climb up trees and eat eggs inside of nests. And then let me show you, oh, here's this one. This one's a really cool one. This is the bush tit nest. So you can see all the little bits of lichen, the mosses that they put into it. And it kind of does look like sort of a floppy sock. And there's lots of fluff from the trees in there. So that's another kind of nest that is actually, they make their nests pretty low to the ground. You can find them a lot easier than you would think. They're just so well hidden that sometimes we don't realize that the nest is there.
It's amazing how much some of that lichen and the things they find in nature look like actual fiber from clothing.
Yeah, it's so similar. So if I was going to measure this nest that I made, my not so beautiful nest right here, I would probably say that it's going to be big enough for like one of the small critters, right? Maybe probably a little too big for a hummingbird actually, but one of the smaller birds, right, would fit in this, or maybe a little mouse, harvester mouse. I think it probably would be, a mouse would be very happy in this nest here. So you can check your nest and kind of see like what animal would like to fit inside of my nest.
We only have a minute or two left, but if any students can measure their nest right now, and put that number in the chat. Find out how big of the nests you're making. Are they going to be 2 inches or 6 inches? How big they are.
How many inches was yours? Mine is only a few inches, probably 4 or 5 inches wide is mine.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny. That was,
Yeah.
oh, I see some answers coming in.
Ooh,
Liam and
Lexi is
Lexi.
a 3 inches. So you're gonna have a small thing, maybe a little mouse, maybe a little bird inside yours. 2 inches. Ooh, that might be a good hummingbird one. The 2 inches. It's got to be pretty small.
Whoa,
Ooh, 6.
Adelaide.
Ooh, that's a big one. You're gonna be able to fit like a Steller's jay in that one. A much bigger bird.
What's the biggest nest you've ever found, Jenny?
The biggest, well, I think the biggest one that I found that I've been able to collect would be like a jay nest,
Okay.
which can be pretty big. But I found other ones that I cannot get because they're too large.
Right. Well, that was fantastic. There's a 5 inches, a 2 inches for hummingbirds from Audrey. Thank you all so much. Well, don't forget, take a picture of your nest with your iPads so your teachers can see them too. And Miss Denisa, it was a wonderful suggestion from her, so thank you so much for that. To all the families from kindergarten and first grade, if you do wish to help us out a little bit more, I'm putting a link in the chat for a little survey. It's 3 questions. It won't take you more than a minute, just to let us know how we're doing and any ways we can make things a little bit better for you. So, but that's all for now from Jenny from Mount Pisgah. Thank you so much, Jenny, for that fun activity.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye. Enjoy the other activities.
And kindergarten and first grade, you're more than welcome to stay and watch the next activity for second and third graders. But I'm hoping right now we're having some second and third graders join us right now. See, the attendees are increasing. So I think that means some new students are coming in. And I will wait about 1 more minute just to make sure we don't leave anybody behind. And to all the second and third graders out there, if you have your kit that the school would have given you to bag with some craft materials inside, if you don't have that right now, you can go ahead and go get it. So you're all prepared. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
Right on time. Yeah, I think we have quite a few attendees actually. Wonderful. Lots of people coming in. So I think we will go ahead and get started. So for all the people joining us, my name is Justin. I work with Connected Lane County, along with lots of other organizations around Lane County. For example, Mount Pisgah Arboretum, who was just here. Jenny from that organization was just here leading us with an activity. And I'm joined also here with Karen from Eugene Science Center. And we are here to bring you some fun hands-on STEM activities for our virtual family STEM night. Hopefully next time we can do this in person, but for now, since it is kind of a rainy night and things are already set up, we're going to go ahead and lead you through this. I will say that this is a webinar, so for all you kiddos at home watching us, we can't see you and we can't really talk directly to you. It's kind of frustrating, it's kind of new, but if you do want to talk to us, you can put your message in the chat. Liam already wrote something to us, so he's got it down pretty well. And a lot of you other students probably know how to use the chat pretty fluently. So if anytime you need to ask a question, please feel free. All right, but I don't want to talk too much. So with that, Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. All right, is that showing, Justin?
Looks good.
All right, and then I'm gonna do one more thing. Oh, I'm trying to make the, trying to show the chat.
Oh, the chat, yeah, that was a cool preview though.
Yeah, Sorry, I have a hard time finding the chat when I am sharing my screen for some reason.
Yeah, it'll be a separate box that pops up. I can monitor it for you too.
Okay, I've got it pulled up. All right, it looks like there was a student who couldn't get in. Is that all settled? It was a couple minutes ago that came up on the chat. But I'll go ahead.
No, there should be no passcode.
All right, so my name is Karen, and I am so happy to see you guys this evening. I hope that you're enjoying one of the last weeks of school. So I work at Eugene Science Center. If you haven't been to visit us before, I put up a picture of what our building looks like now. It used to be a rainbow striped building, and we just changed our colors a couple of years ago to be green and blue. But we are a science museum and planetarium here in Eugene, Oregon. And I am going to do a science experiment with you guys today about insects. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some pictures of insects. Let's see if I can get this. Here we go. So up here on the screen, I have insects that have all different adaptations. And I wanted to talk about some of the adaptations that these different insects have. But before I do that, I want you guys to find your paper from your kit that looks like this. It has a big picture of a bug on it. So try to find your paper with a big picture of a bug. And then if you have something to write with, that might help you out. So I've got a pencil here if you want to look around for a pencil or a marker, or you can just follow along. If you don't have a kit, this is still an activity that you can do with us. You can just draw if you don't have a kit, if you have a paper and pencil. So I wanted to talk about some of the special adaptations that insects have to help them survive, because later we are actually going to invent a new insect. So up here I have a picture of a praying mantis. Now this insect here you might have heard of before. They can be kind of scary. And a praying mantis has front legs that are kind of like traps that they can use to capture prey. So this insect actually hunts for its food. Now next to it, on the other side on the top with the green background, that's a close-up photo of a flea. Now we know that in real life, fleas are teeny, teeny, tiny. They're so tiny that they're really hard to see, and they are a problem if we have pets at home. We know that when the leaves fall and the ground gets kind of wet, our yards might fill up with fleas that get on our pets. And these tiny, tiny bugs have special mouth parts that help them suck blood. So if you look closely at the mouth of that bug, it looks pretty freaky. So this bug can survive on other animals. It doesn't need to find any other place to live. It can just survive on the body of another animal and use those special mouth parts to help it survive. And then we have this rhinoceros beetle here at the bottom that has that long horn that it can use to help defend itself and fight other beetles, which is pretty cool adaptation. And then finally, we have these really cool water striders. And if you've ever seen them before, we know that they can walk on water. So they have legs that are especially adapted to let them float on the water. They're long and water resistant legs that help them stay above the surface of the water. And all of these bugs are considered insects. And there are certain things that all insects have in common. And I wanted to use that paper that you guys have, and it should look like this. I've got it up on the screen now to talk about the different parts of an insect. So if you're at home and you want to try to guess all of the different parts of an insect on your own, you could go through and guess where you think all of these parts are found. Now, all insects have a head. That's the part of their body where they have eyes and 2 antennae. And then right behind that, they have a part of the body called the thorax. The thorax is a middle segment. So all insects have 3 segments or 3 different body parts. And the interesting thing about the thorax is that that's where the wings and all of the legs connect. So even for a bug where you can't really tell that it's nicely divided, like you can for this picture here, you can always find the thorax of the bug by looking at where the legs and the wings connect. And then finally, that big final segment is called the abdomen. And then we have 6 legs. All insects have 6 legs. And most insects, but not all insects, have 2 pairs of wings. So I'll go ahead and fill this in for you. So if you want to follow along at home, you can fill in those answers there. And this is really important to consider because when we're designing our own insects in just a moment here, you are going to need to think about including all of these parts to make sure that your insect is actually an insect. Because we know there are other kinds of arthropods or bugs that aren't considered insects. So if you've heard of an arachnid or a millipede, those are bugs, but they are not insects. Insects are a special type of bug. And with those orange circles there, I've circled where the legs are attached to the thorax, just so you can get a close-up look and see, oh, actually, yes, all 6 of those legs, all 3 pairs of legs are connected in that middle body segment to the thorax there. And we've got the eyes and the antenna coming out the top. And if you haven't had time to fill all of this in, not a big deal. I think that you should be able to move on, and we'll get to the really exciting part here in just a second because I have a challenge for you. So in your kit, you also got a piece of paper that showed some different habitats. So I'm going to go through and talk about all the different habitat options that you have. So on your page, you probably see 2 different habitats, but there are actually a bunch of different habitats that I gave to everyone in your classes. So you and your classmate are going to be building insects that survive in different habitats. So you're going to choose one from the paper in front of you. And I wanted to talk about some of these first before we get started building, because when we design our insect, you need to think about not only how its body is shaped, but how it's adapted to survive in its home. So one habitat option that I have for you is a windy beach. And if your insect is going to survive on a windy beach, it could get food from flowers, it could eat other bugs, it could eat plants, or it could eat dead plants or dead animals. And when you're designing your insect, I want you to think about just one food source from your habitat card that you can make sure that your insect is able to eat. You may have a habitat card that says on or in another animal. So some bugs, like the flea, live on other animals, or they could even live in other animals. We know that some bugs actually live inside of animals and live off of the blood or the food that's in their intestinal system. So they might eat blood, they might eat other bugs, they might eat poop or dung or decaying matter. So imagine you had to design an insect who survived on that bear there. You might have a habitat card that says dark caves. So it might have to survive in a cold, dark place where it could eat tiny micronutrients or tiny living things in the soil. It could eat dung, it could eat other bugs or worms, or it could eat decaying matter. Decaying matter means that it's something that's decomposing. It's breaking down into smaller parts. We also had the option of a dry desert, so a really hot, sunny place without a lot of water. Your food source could be leaves or nectar from flowers, dead plants, dead animals, or again, other bugs. We had a fallen tree log. This would be a fun one. We see a lot of these here in Oregon. Your bug could eat wood or worms and grubs, dead animals, or again, other arthropods. You could have a fruit tree as a habitat. So you might have a bug that just lives on trees and eats leaves or fruit or nectar or any other things that are found on that tree. Your bug might live in a freshwater pond. Here at the Science Center, we have a lot of ponds and we see a lot of bugs where the bugs might live in the water or live near the water. And there are a lot of great places where they can get food. And a lot of these bugs are either able to fly or swim, or like that water strider, stand on top of the water. Or it could live under rocks. If you've ever been outside in the forest and lifted up a big rock, you might have noticed that there are living things living down there. So you might have an insect that you designed to survive under a rock. or it might just live on the forest floor. So on the forest floor, there's leaf litter. That's leaves that have fallen from trees and that are starting to decompose. So you might want to choose from some of these food sources here: decaying plants or soil or worms or grubs, or again, other bugs. Or you could have a cold mountain habitat. So these are really cold places where there isn't a lot of warmth, or it might be pretty snowy, and you might have to adapt your insect to live in this cold mountain habitat. All right, so if you're looking at your paper in front of you, you can choose one of those habitats in front of you, and we are going to design our own insect. Now, this doesn't have to be something that exists in real life. It's going to come from your imagination. You can be completely creative, but I do want to challenge you to try to make sure that you're actually designing an insect so that it has all of these parts of an insect that we talked about earlier. So in order to design your insect, you can start by creating with the things from the kit. So if you want to do that, I'll show you about some of the supplies that we had. So hopefully you guys can all see my screen here while I'm also sharing my screen, if you can see my picture. So you had a packet of Model Magic, some modeling clay that you can open up. And this is modeling clay that you can use to form the body of your insect. And in your house, you might also want to grab some scissors to help you. We got some pipe cleaners that you could use to design antenna or wings or legs for your insect. And you also have some straws as well that you can use in your design for whatever you think they should be used for. And if you have a pair of scissors, then you should be able to cut those down to whatever size you need. And then my favorite part of your kit is that you also got a little watercolor kit. So if you want to paint your bug to help it match whatever habitat it lives in, it might camouflage. So camouflage is when the colors of the animal match the color of its habitat, so it's able to hide. Or you might want it to be really bright, and it might be a poisonous bug that says, hey, I'm really bright, and you don't want to come near me or eat me because I'm dangerous and poisonous. And we know that some insects have those bright colors as a warning, as opposed to having more dark, camouflage, natural colors. And if you want to grab a small cup of water that can help you, as well as some paper towels here. So when you're designing your insect, you can use your paper that's just like what I've got up on the screen here, and you can think about what its food source is. You can choose something from your habitat card, or you can come up with your own food source. And you need to think about, how does it find its food and how does it eat its food? How is your insect going to move? Is it going to be a really good jumper? Can it fly? Does it crawl on the ground? Does it live underground? There are all different things that it can use to move. Does it walk on the surface of the water? What eats your insect? So what predators does it need to defend itself from? Are there any other animals or bugs that are going to try to eat your insect in that habitat? And then we need to think about, in the case of predators, how is your insect going to defend itself? How is it going to escape? Is it going to have spikes? Is it going to be really fast? Is it going to be really well camouflaged? Is it really good at hiding? Or is it, again, like I mentioned earlier, really bright and warning that, hey, I'm poisonous? So think about all of these things. And then on the back of that page there, if you are like me and you like to draw out your plan first, you could sketch out what you think your insect is going to look like and label all of its body parts. So remember that your insect needs to have a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. So those 3 body segments. Now for some insects, those are all kind of squished together. They're not always 3 circles like we saw with our bee at the beginning there. And a really fun thing is you get to name your insect. You come up with whatever name you want for your insect, write down its habitat. So if it lives on one of those habitat card options, you can write down that habitat, or you come up with your own habitat if you're feeling super creative. And then you could write down its special adaptations. So what about your animal helps it survive? So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I'll do this, I'll share this at the end here. All right. So we've got some time to go through this together. So I am going to design an insect with you. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. And again, if you don't have a kit at home, you can absolutely just grab some markers or pencils and draw and come up with your own design and follow along with us. And I'm gonna try to come up with my own bug. So my insect, I think I want it to live, I think I want it to live near a pond. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of my modeling clay here. And I'm just kind of making 3 balls of clay. But I'm really, really curious what you guys are coming up with at home. And if you are able to take a picture, just like we asked for the younger kids, I would love to see your designs, or you can at least share them with your classmates and with your teacher. So for my insect, I'm not a very good artist, so if yours doesn't look exactly like how you imagine it in your mind, that's okay. We're just gonna try our best here and be creative with the materials that we have in front of us. So I kind of took 3 different segments here, so you can kind of tell that I have a head, thorax, and abdomen. And I think I'm gonna take my pipe cleaners and design some wings because I want mine to be able to fly. So I'm just gonna kind of curl these up and stick them in there. There we go. And curl up this other one and stick it in. And remember that those wings connect to the middle body segment there, to the thorax. And then I think that I'm gonna use maybe my final pipe cleaner to make some legs. So I know that insects have 6 legs, so I need to cut this into 6 segments. And I'll stick those in there too. There we go. And if you ever look really closely at a bug, we know that their legs are segmented too. So I could also bend my pipe cleaners to make parts of their legs. And I hope that you guys at home are able to be super creative. Maybe you're making something that looks like a beetle or like a bee, or maybe it's kind of spooky like that praying mantis, or it could be something that looks poisonous or scary. Let's see. Oh, I've got some things. Oh, just some chatter in the chat there. So I'm going to go ahead and attach some legs to my thorax here. And now I'm going to get to the fun part, which is painting. So this modeling clay that you have, it should air dry. So if you leave it out to sit for a few days, it should just dry on its own, and it should be okay to just go ahead and paint on it now. So I'm going to go ahead and get a tray because I'm kind of messy. So I'm going to do this on top of a tray. And I've got my cup of water. I've got a little paper towel here and my watercolor kit. And since my bug lives near water, I want it to kind of be the color of plants that live near water. So I might color it maybe some greens, maybe some yellows and browns. So I'm going to start with my green paint here. And you can be as creative and colorful as you want for your project. Oh, and I'll move this little. So I'm just kind of drawing some stripes on mine because I want mine to be kind of stripy and camouflaged. And then I'll go ahead, since we've only got a few more minutes, I'm going to share my screen one more time. Let's see. So that if you do want to share your project with me, you could go on social media and you could use hashtag Eugene Science Center or @Eugene Science Center, or you could just shoot me an email, or your teacher could send me an email with pictures of your projects. I'd love to see what you guys come up with because I'm sad I can't see your little beautiful projects at home. So if you want to share those with me, I would love to see what you make. I've got my email up there. And if you want to share it on social media, you're absolutely welcome to, with your parents' permission, of course. Or you could just share it with your teacher and your classmates. All right, so I'll stop sharing again. There we go. So now I'm kind of moving on, picking some other colors for my insect. I'm doing some browns. But again, you can be as creative as you like for this project. And I'm thinking kind of hard. I'm trying to think about what I want to name my insect. I think that it's going to eat smaller bugs that live in the water. So it's going to be kind of a hunter. And I have to think about what to name it. If you have ideas for what I should name mine, you could absolutely put them in the chat there. There we go. I'm giving it some brown. Maybe I'll call it the green striped flyer. I'm not sure. The green striped gobbler. Maybe it's gobbling up little bugs. And I think I want to paint some eyes on here as well, just so we know, oh, it can see. Oh, and I didn't give it antenna. So if you want yours to have antenna, you can add some antenna in. Well, I've got some straws here that I'll use to make my antenna. Maybe I'll make them really long. Here we go. And if you're not sure if you have all the parts of an insect on your insect yet, you can check that sheet. Okay, now it looks kind of silly. I love it. So I've got some antenna, I've got my 6 legs, I've got some wings. I'm coloring it still. It'll take a little bit to dry. And if you don't like the way that your clay is forming, you can always smush it back together. Oh, see. Oh, name it Lily. I think that's a lovely name.
Yeah, nice.
Lily's a great name. Maybe it lives near lily pads. Maybe it will rest on a lily pad and hunt for food while it's resting.
Nice suggestion, Ava.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about that. Was it the flea?
The flea. I know. I hope some of you guys are maybe making some spooky bugs, especially if you chose a habitat on top of another animal or in a cave. There are some pretty creepy bugs out there. You can absolutely be creative. I was just thinking of the pond because I was out at the pond today looking at birds and bugs and flowers. So that was just kind of what was on my mind. I'm going to add some yellow because I think it needs yellow. Maybe it'll have a yellow face.
That's true. Insects do use all sorts of colors, don't they?
Oh yeah, that's one of the coolest things I think about bugs is all the different ways that they can look, even though they're all so similar. They might eat different things and live in different places, but they all have some things in common, like those 6 legs and 2 antennae and 3 body segments.
Cooper, I see you have your hand raised. If you have a question, can you put it in the chat? Or something you want to share?
Yeah, if you want to, you could type in the chat and share with us. If you want to tell me about your insect. And I'm sorry I can't see your project. So if you want to ask your parents or your teacher to help you share your project with me, I would love to see that. Maybe I could share it on our Instagram page at the Science Center so everyone who likes us could see what you guys made. And when I'm thinking about Lily here, I think that she is going to be able to escape predators by flying away. And I think she's probably a pretty fast flyer because look at those big wings that she's got there. Oh, Anthony made a mosquito. Oh, a blood-sucking bug. So pretty spooky. Anthony, does your mosquito live in a habitat where there are other animals that it's eating its blood? Thank you for sharing. Let's see. And I think I'm going to make a little smile on my bug, even though we don't always see bugs smiling. I think I want her to smile. You know, she has a kind of a creepy smile, maybe. Maybe give her a happier smile. And I have a feeling that some of you are much better artists than I am. So, oh, it eats the blood and it can live off fruits. Oh, a nice adaptation there. So if it doesn't have any animals to eat, it could just eat some fruit and get some sugar. Fruit is a great source of food. It has lots of sugar and energy for things. Oh, a spider. Cooper, I'm curious where your spider lives. All right. All right, and I think that kind of wraps up our time. So again, if you guys still want to keep working on your insects, you're welcome to do so. Take as much time as you need, be creative. And I really enjoyed doing science with you guys. I hope that in the future I could come visit you at school and we can do this together, or you can maybe come visit us at the Science Center. We have been closed for a while because of the pandemic, but we think we're gonna reopen when school starts in the fall. So this summer we're still gonna be closed so that we can have summer camps and the kids that are here in summer camp can stay safe. But after summer camp's over, we're gonna be open again for everyone to come visit with their school or with their family. You could come play or see a planetarium show, and we're really looking forward to that. All right.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. Yeah, we all can't wait, I think. Well, Karen, thank you so much for bringing all the fun activities from the Eugene Science Center all the way to us in our homes. Cooper gave us a face, made a spider. But to all you families out there at Twin Oaks, all the second and third graders, thank you so much for joining us. We had a very nice crowd here. I'm going to put, just like before, this link in the chat. If you wouldn't mind helping us out, it's a little quick survey. It's 3 questions. It'll take you 1 minute. Your parents, please, if you wouldn't mind filling it out for us, it will kind of help us, see how we're doing and see if we can find other ways to help you all out. So that's all for second and third grade. We really appreciate your time and hope you had a fun time. Take pictures of your creatures so you can show your teachers and your friends. And that's all for now. We're going to take a 30-minute break and then we'll come right back at 6:30 for the 4th and 5th grade activity.
All right. See you guys
All right.
later.
Thank you again, Karen.